Do you ever get that dread, that knot in the bottom of your stomach when you know something bad's about to happen? I used to get it at school whenever you hadn't done your homework for a certain class and you were lined up outside and you were called into the room and you just knew that within 10 minutes you were going to be back outside getting shouted at because you hadn't done the work, or in my case, hadn't even tried to do the work. Or I used to get it at home. I always remember growing up, I had these massive slide robes, like these wardrobes in my room. And one time, I don't know what I was doing, but I fell backwards and cracked. One of them was a mirror, and I cracked the mirror the whole way down. I know that's meant to be 7 years bad luck, but that wasn't what I was worried about in that moment. What I was worried about in that moment was when Mum and Dad came home. And I remember them coming home and making small talk with them and kind of going, well, something's happened. And confessing up what I had done, but my stomach was in absolute knots by that point. I was petrified of what they were going to do. That waiting, that moment before they came through the door, when you heard the key go into the lock, was terrifying. I hated it. It's still to this day, I now have a bit of a weird knot in my stomach thinking about that. In our series of waiting that we're looking at, last week we looked at Abraham and Sarah and their wait that went on their entire lives. Today we're looking at a wait that lasted much less time, but is much more of that terrifying wait. One of the great stories in the Old Testament is the story of Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den, as it's always called. The whole book of Daniel is really interesting, actually. Is a great read from start to finish. If you want stories that just completely blow your mind as to how good God is, but also stories that just seem a wee bit terrifying at the same time. But Daniel in the lion's den is an awesome one for one main reason. It's got that moment of waiting in it. It's got that moment of waiting that is terrifying. You see, Daniel had been doing really well in his life. He had risen to a really high rank within the community and within the country that he was living in. And people had started conspiring against him. People looked at this guy and went, he's too good. There has to be something dodgy about him. There has to be something that we can make stick. So all the people around him started to conspire against him and tried to find something to stick in him, and they couldn't do it. They just couldn't work it out. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't dodgy. There was nothing weird in his background. There was no skeletons in his cupboard that they could blackmail him with. Instead, Daniel just was a good guy. There was nothing in his background. So instead, these people conspired with the king and kind of tricked the king into making a declaration that you could worship no god except the king. To Daniel, that was a problem, because Daniel prayed 3 times a day to God. And that God wasn't the king. It was the God of the Bible. So as Daniel prayed, this ended up getting him in trouble. The people went to the king and said, oh, look at Daniel, he's praying to someone that's not you. That's not on. And Daniel, the king, decided that the decree was the decree, the rules were the rules, and they couldn't be changed for anybody. So the king reluctantly put Daniel into the lion's den. Now, the lion's den is kind of exactly what you're imagining. Imagine going to Belfast Zoo, climbing over the bars. That's climbing into the zoo as opposed to the animals that like to climb out. But imagine climbing into the lion's den and spending the night there. I don't know about you, but I don't think I would last too long. But Daniel was thrown in, and it says that a massive stone was placed across the doorway so that no one could get in or out. The king went to his bed that night, worried. The king, I'm sure, had that knot in his stomach because the king actually really liked Daniel. Because Daniel wasn't corrupt, Daniel wasn't dodgy, he was one of the people he could trust. But he had broken the rules, and the king had to do what the king had to do. So that night, the king, it says, he refused entertainment and couldn't sleep all night. His stomach was turning and twisting. I'm sure Daniel's was too. Being in a den with lions surrounding him who probably hadn't eaten a huge amount recently. The next morning, the king runs to Daniel, runs to the den of lions and calls in. He says this, Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God whom you serve so faithful that he was able to rescue you? And this voice calls back, Long live the King. My God sent his angels to shut the lion's mouth, so it would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight. That wait was only one night. That wait was only one night, 12 hours in a den with lions. But 12 hours in a den with lions, for the rest of us, we wouldn't survive minutes. In fact, it goes on in the story to say that as a repercussion, others were thrown to the lions, and their bodies didn't even touch the ground before the lions overpowered them. See, for you and I, we feel that anxiety, we feel that fear, we feel that knot twisting in our stomach all the time. That's not uncommon. That's part of humanity. It's part of life. But God says, trust in me and cast your worries on me, and I'll be there for you. I'm sure Daniel's still worried in that lion's den. I'm sure he made eye contact with a lion or two and thought, this isn't going to end well. But he put his trust in God and said, no matter what, God, this is for you. Maybe in our lives, maybe in our waiting, maybe in just day-to-day life, anxiety, worry, dread is a real thing for us. It's part of life. But God says, throw it all onto me. Throw it all to me and I will look after you. Doesn't always make the feelings go away, but it does give us that greater feeling of knowing that God's in control. That God is with us and God will look after us. So that no matter what this world throws us, no matter how many nights of no sleep we get because of the knot twisting, because of the anxiety, because of the worry, because of the dread of the wait, God says, I'm with you, I'll look after you, and I'll protect you. So this week, guys, I hope that in our waiting that it can be anxious, in our waiting that can be full of dread and full of fear, that we realise God's with us, that he is so much bigger than anything that we're facing. And that although those feelings are still there, he cares. He cares even for you. Have a good week, guys.